Be honest with yourself. If every man on the internet can message your girl, how much of her is really yours? Because in 2025, loyalty isn't lost. It's just online, waiting for the highest bidder. On September 30th, 2025, Cory Hawk went live once again just as he faithfully does every Tuesday, a ritual that's become almost sacred to his followers, week after week, for nearly 10 years. He's been a consistent voice on the internet, sometimes controversial, often unfiltered, but always authentic. His shows have this unique way of cutting through the noise of online chatter and forcing you to think. It's not just entertainment, it's commentary with teeth. This week's episode carried a title that immediately turned heads: Other Men's Access to Your Girl. Even before he uttered a word, the name alone stirred a reaction, part intrigue, part discomfort. The phrase challenges the modern relationship dynamic right from the jump. It hints at something most people feel but don't want to admit: the blurred boundaries that social media has created between private relationships and public validation. When Cory began speaking, it wasn't with the tone of someone trying to start drama. Instead, he had the calm confidence of a man who's observed patterns for years and decided to call them out. He spoke about the way modern relationships are shaped by visibility, likes, comments, and dismissed the constant, quiet competition for attention that never really stops. His words struck a chord because, whether we admit it or not, they reflected the truth about how deeply the internet has rewired intimacy. Cory reminded his audience that he's been live streaming long enough to witness the evolution of online culture firsthand. He started when Instagram was still new, when TikTok didn't exist, and when going live was a novelty rather than a routine. Over time, he's watched how relationships transformed alongside technology, how digital life blurred the line between connection and exposure. What used to be private affection has turned into public performance. Couples aren't just living together, they're managing their image together. As he delved deeper into the theme, Cory spoke about how men often underestimate the social reach of their partners. In earlier generations, a woman's social circle was limited to the people she physically met, but now, with a single post, she can be seen, admired, and approached by thousands, sometimes millions. That's not a moral judgment. It's simply the reality of the digital ecosystem. And when he said that, it wasn't with bitterness, it was with the tone of a man acknowledging how the game has changed. Cory used his platform not just to criticize but to educate. He challenged men to understand that control isn't the solution, awareness is. The modern dating environment requires emotional intelligence, not possessiveness. You can't police a woman's behavior online, he argued, but you can observe what she values. A person's digital footprint reveals their priorities, what they post, how they respond to attention, and what kind of validation they seek. That's not cynicism, that's pattern recognition. The conversation grew even more layered as he talked about accountability, not just for women, but for men too. He noted how easy it is for guys to complain about other men's access, while ignoring how they themselves behave on social media. Many men, he pointed out, are guilty of the same need for attention, thirst trapping for likes, DM hopping, and entertaining options while claiming to want loyalty. The hypocrisy, he said, is what weakens modern relationships. Real strength is the ability to set standards and live by them, not just demand them from others. Listening to him, I couldn't help but reflect on how many of us overlook the quiet ways our digital habits shape our real lives. Cory's point wasn't about controlling anyone. It was about understanding human behavior in the context of constant exposure. We now live in a world where validation is currency. Posts become proof of worth. A like from a stranger can carry the same emotional weight as a compliment from a partner, and that shift has quietly changed the foundation of modern romance. He drew comparisons between the old and new eras of dating. In the past, a man's biggest worry might have been whether his girlfriend bumped into an ex at the grocery store. Today, that ex can slide into her DMs at 2 a.m., comment on her story, and remind her of old memories, all without leaving the couch. Technology has amplified access, and with access comes temptation. Cory wasn't preaching doom and gloom. He was simply saying that pretending those dynamics don't exist is naive. At one point, he shared a story about a fan who wrote in, frustrated that his girlfriend kept posting revealing pictures online despite his discomfort. Cory's response wasn't what the man expected. Instead of telling him to demand change, Cory asked him a simple question. Was she doing that before you met her? When the guy admitted that she was, Cory made his point clear: you can't fall in love with a public personality and then ask her to become private just because you feel insecure. That hit hard, because it captured the contradiction at the heart of so many relationships. He went on to say that everyone wants loyalty, but few people actually define it. Is loyalty about exclusivity of attention, or exclusivity of action? Does a woman posting selfies mean she's seeking other men, or simply expressing herself? Cory didn't give a one-size-fits-all answer. He encouraged people to talk about boundaries openly, rather than assume they share the same expectations. Communication, he said, is what separates mature relationships from emotional guessing games. Another point he made that stuck with me was about he argued that men who know their value don't waste energy policing someone else's behavior, they simply choose better from the start. The moment you try to negotiate respect after attraction, you've already lost leverage. Instead of asking someone to stop acting single, date people who already move like they're committed. That's how you save yourself from frustration. As he spoke, you could tell that Cory wasn't attacking women or praising men. He was addressing human nature in the context of technology. Both genders, he said, are caught in the same attention economy. Everyone wants to be seen, validated, and desired, but not everyone understands the cost of constantly seeking that validation. The more we chase external approval, the less we cultivate internal peace. He ended the segment with a thought that felt both practical and profound. You can't compete for peace and clout at the same time. In other words, you can either build a relationship grounded in trust, or you can live online, chasing attention, but trying to do both will eventually destroy one. When the live stream ended, thousands of comments flooded in, some agreeing, some angry, some just shocked at how blunt he was. But that's what makes Cory Hawk's Tuesday sessions so powerful. They're not scripted lectures, they're reality checks. He speaks from the perspective of someone who's seen how digital behavior shapes emotional life, and he refuses to sugarcoat it. What makes his approach resonate isn't that he's always right. It's that he's willing to say what most people are too afraid to say. In a world full of filters, Cory's content feels unfiltered. He reminds men to think critically about who they invest in, and he challenges women to consider how their online presence communicates their values. By the end of that night, Other Men's Access to Your Girl wasn't just a catchy title anymore. It became a mirror for anyone brave enough to look. It wasn't about control, jealousy, or blame. It was about awareness, accountability, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths about love in the social media era. Cory Hawk didn't just go live that night, he sparked a conversation that every modern couple, influencer, and hopeless romantic needed to hear. And maybe that's why, after nearly a decade, his audience keeps showing up every Tuesday, not just to be entertained, but to be reminded of how real the digital world has become and how much wisdom it still takes to navigate it with integrity.
How is your woman so accessible to so many men? Let me make sure you hear that. If you got a woman, how is your woman so accessible to so many men? Let me explain. Nowadays, we got this thing called social media, okay? Now let's just keep it real. Let's just keep it real. Social media is basically a dating app where you can order. Is it anything more than that?
For me, that's not what it is.
You can get in contact with somebody that you'd never have access to.
That's what social media is, a dating app where you can order. You tell me where that's wrong.
Shit, not for me.
If your woman has more than 20 pictures this year on the internet, yo belong to the game. This is a fact that I can prove it. Let me say that again. If your woman, and I'm being lenient, if your woman got more than 20 pictures on the internet this year, yo belong to the game. Stop saying that's your woman. That's our woman. She's accessible to me. If I was able to DM your woman and ask her for the womb, you should not be in my DM talking about why you talking to my woman. You should be asking your woman, why is he accessible? Why are you accessible to this man? Because that's the first thing y'all did wrong. If I can get to your woman, there's a good chance I can get your woman.
We live in an era ruled by social media, and as Cory spoke, I couldn't help reflecting on the women I've dated over the past decade. I thought about the kind of photos they post, especially on platforms like TikTok, and how that reflects the world we live in today. I've even found myself buying phones for some of them, only to watch as they upgraded their online presence, snapping higher quality photos, and sharing even more attention-grabbing content. And honestly, when Cory spoke about men being in denial, I understood. It's easy to dismiss what he says and think, he's just hating. He couldn't get my girl. But deep down, we know there's some truth there. Many women will say, I use social media to make money, and I respect that. I've been creating content online for years too. But let's be real. For many women, social media isn't just about income. It's a gateway to opportunities, free products, attention, validation, and sometimes, backup options. Think about it. A woman might be in a relationship, loyal even, but part of her mind knows there are always other men in her DMs, other possibilities if things don't work out. That's just how the digital dating ecosystem works. So guys, if you're engaging with women who live online, don't expect them to suddenly stop. That's who they were when you met them. If you met her while she was posting dance clips, skits, or thirst traps, that's the version of her that attracted you in the first place. Expecting her to change once she's with you is unrealistic. If you want something different, seek women who don't rely on social media for attention. They exist, some post occasionally, but don't live on their feeds. In places like Uganda, for example, many women don't flood their Instagram with flashy content, unlike what you might see in Kenya, where online culture is much more performative. And men, let's be honest, if you're out there talking to other women, how can you expect her not to? It's unfair to demand loyalty when you're not practicing it yourself. If she's not your wife, don't act like she owes you the world. Focus on yourself, stay grounded, and let others worry about chasing validation. That's real leverage in the dating game: peace of mind and self-control. When another guy gets involved with your girl, don't stress. Ask yourself, what's he really getting? Is he going to invest in her emotionally like you did? Probably not. Most of those connections are surface level, transactional even. When the excitement fades and he realizes she's not the loyal type, she likely circle back. And that's when the power shifts back to you. So instead of confronting other men, hold your partner accountable. She's the one who owes you loyalty, not the random dude in her inbox. If her actions don't match her words, if her social media persona screams single, while she claims she wants to be a wife, believe the behavior, not the caption. Because in this generation, many say they want marriage and family, but their online image tells a different story. Women who genuinely aspire to be wives, mothers, or partners you can build with rarely need lectures about how to behave. Their actions already align with their intentions. It's a lot like football. You can find quarterbacks with incredible athletic ability, but some of them can't stay out of trouble off the field. They show up late, skip practice, or create chaos in the locker room. That's not leadership. That's wasted potential. But when you meet players who are disciplined, focused, and committed to the team, you don't have to babysit them. They already understand what's required. The same logic applies to relationships. When you meet a woman with genuine values and emotional maturity, you won't need to constantly ask, "Why are you wearing that?" or "Why are you out drinking again?" Believe it or not, there are plenty of women who simply don't drink, don't argue for sport, and carry themselves with quiet confidence. With women like that, character speaks louder than any conversation. The real issue for many men is that we tend to lead with attraction instead of discernment. We see physical beauty, chase it, and then try to mold the person into something she's not. That's when the problems start. Too many men prioritize looks, cheeks first, morals second. I'll admit, I've done it too, but the order should be reversed. Character first, chemistry later. The behavior should earn the intimacy, not the other way around. The truth is, when men reward poor behavior with attention or sex, they lose all leverage. That's something I learned from the late, great Simple to P, a man who understood the deeper psychology of relationships. Long before social media made everything so performative. When you make everything about physical gratification, you're not just giving away control of the situation, you're giving away your dignity. You turn intimacy into currency, and once that happens, the exchange rate is never in your favor. As long as a woman knows you'll tolerate anything for the sake of clapping, she holds all the power. She understands that no matter how disrespectful, inconsistent, or self-serving her behavior becomes, all she has to do is dangle the reward, and you'll fall back in line. That's the silent trap most men fall into, mistaking access for value. Just because you're sleeping with her doesn't mean you're winning. Sometimes, it means you've settled. It's an uncomfortable truth because it challenges how we've been taught to measure success as men. Society tells us that the more women we attract, the more validated we should feel. But attraction isn't the same as admiration, and access isn't the same as respect. If a woman doesn't respect you, if she doesn't look at you like a man of vision, discipline, and self-control, then what exactly are you getting from her? The answer, more often than not, is temporary satisfaction at the expense of long-term stability. When you're operating from a place of desperation, chasing validation, begging for attention, tolerating nonsense, you're negotiating from weakness. You're showing that your boundaries are flexible as long as she offers physical rewards. That's not love. That's leverage lost. Respect begins where tolerance ends. Once a man understands that, his whole approach to women changes. He no longer asks for compliance. He attracts cooperation. He doesn't argue about loyalty. He chooses loyalty from the start. If you want respect, you have to stop trying to earn it by lowering your standards. You have to set the tone. Respect isn't demanded, it's inspired by how you carry yourself. A man who values his time, controls his emotions, and moves with purpose doesn't need to plead for attention. His presence commands it. When you lead with standards, you naturally filter out those who aren't ready to match your energy. You stop chasing and start choosing. Too many men are trying to reform women who were never meant to fit their lives. They fall for potential instead of pattern. You can't mold someone who doesn't want to change, and it's not your job to fix broken behavior. The moment you start playing therapist instead of partner, you've already lost your role as a leader. Growth should be mutual, not one-sided. The irony is that once you step into that mindset where your peace matters more than your pride, you actually gain more respect, not less. Women are drawn to men who know who they are and what they stand for. A man who can walk away from chaos without bitterness is a man who understands his power. You stop being reactive and start being selective. You stop chasing validation and start cultivating peace. That's why this message hits hard for so many men, because deep down, we know it's true. We've all been in situations where we let attraction blind us to red flags, where we settled for attention instead of alignment. But maturity is realizing that your time, energy, and emotional stability are too valuable to waste on people who treat you like an option. So what do you think, fellas? At the end of the day, this isn't about hate, control, or ego, it's about awareness. When you understand your worth, you stop confusing chaos for connection. You stop mistaking entertainment for intimacy. You become the man who chooses peace over pressure. It's your boy Jackson, back again with the celebrity junk. Appreciate you for tuning in, for thinking deeper, and for leveling up with me. Remember, don't chase validation, build value, stand firm in your standards, move with integrity, and as always, stay sharp.